David's story is touching, but sadly it has to be this way. Welcome back to the video. After the success of the game, CD Projekt decided to go ahead and give Cyberpunk a series of its own. The story revolves around a kid named David, who has to face grave challenges during the series. The show's final scenes have led fans to wonder if David is dead in Cyberpunk Edgerunners. What happens to David? The final episode was quite a thriller in Cyberpunk Edgerunners. David has to deal with plenty of enemies to save himself and his friends from obliteration. However, things seem to be out of David's control, and he's also running out of time. In desperation, David decides to do the only thing that could save everybody from disappearing. David is on medication, but as its effects wears off, his condition starts to turn from bad to worse. Meanwhile, Faraday takes Kiwi out of the equation, but she tells David about Faraday's location. David barges in, defeating everyone in his way to save Lucy. He even takes out Faraday with a blow to the head that sends it flying. Unfortunately, things aren't going his way, and Arasaka deploys their main cyborg, Atom Smasher. There are casualties on both sides, and David falls to the ground in front of Atom Smasher. The cyborg eliminates David by pointing a weapon in his direction, but Lucy is safe. That's where the first season ends. Did it really happen? The ending seemed really sad and worthwhile for David. He managed to save his love from harm, but gave up his life instead. But that's not what a lot of people think. Plenty of theories about the show have sprung up since its release, and they sound pretty assuring that David might still be alive. During his final moments, David smiles and there's a big splash of blood on the screen. It then directly shifts to another location. It's common for movie directors to use such effects to mask the reality of the event substantially. Many people notice how they quickly switch the theme from David's end to a more subtle ending. Therefore, a lot of people think that David might still come back in another season. Taking out a potentially useful element would be a stupid move. Arasaka is a foundation that has conducted some successful experiments. Undoubtedly, David is a valuable asset, owing to his compatibility with the cyberskeleton. He would be a useful member for Arasaka to use in a number of other ways, which is why it's possible they might have cancelled the order to execute him at the last second. It would be a disappointment to see such a great character being rushed out of the story in the first season. David has set the pace for the series, and many people praise the character's ambition and struggles. Putting him away from the show would only drop the series rating substantially. Therefore, the studio can't take the risk of eliminating David, and he might still be alive. If you're enjoying the video, like and comment below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more such videos. Now, let's move on. CD Projekt's biggest project. Cyberpunk 2077 was CD Projekt's biggest game up to date, and many players anticipated its arrival. Earlier, people had begged the company to design the game and release it as soon as possible, but the developers made sure that the game was up to the mark before it went public. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. While the game received plenty of applause for its graphics and design, there were significant complaints about gameplay. There were too many bugs for any player to enjoy the game. Every player was a victim, and a bug appeared every few seconds in the game. Nobody was eager to play it as there were too many problems. Finally, the developers fixed many of the issues. Now the game has a substantial number of active players, all the time, and many players are also impressed by the improvements CD Projekt provided for Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk Edgerunners, an adaptation. Even before the game was released, the idea of creating a cinematic project based on the game's theme had been in motion. Fans were waiting desperately for the game in 2020, when CD Projekt released another big surprise. In June 2020, just months before the game's official release, CD Projekt announced through their livestream, named Night City Wire, that there will be a show based on Cyberpunk 2077's theme later on. 2 years later, Project Trigger, a studio dedicated to designing anime shows, announced the release of Cyberpunk Edgerunners on the popular streaming service Netflix. It's been a significant success for both Studio Trigger and CD Projekt, owing to its amazing characters, world design, and animation. The story is set a year before the events of Cyberpunk 2077. It follows a young street kid named David Martinez, a top-notch student at Arasaka Academy, but he loses everything in a tragic shooting event. With nowhere and nobody to go to, David adopts the streets and becomes a cyberpunk, otherwise known as a black market high-tech mercenary. Part of what made the show such a big hit was the characters. Many people praised David for his contribution and amazing character development in the story. However, the last scene is pretty vague, and nobody knows what happens to him at that time. With so many theories floating around, there's plenty of excitement and curiosity about what could be next in the series. That's all for today. It's only the first season, so nobody knows which direction the show will go in. Whether David will remain the show's main character or not, only further development will tell. For now, Cyberpunk's Edgerunner is an exciting anime, and we can't wait for more episodes.